The laughter and clink of glasses swirled around me, but beneath it all was a tension that didn't belong. I felt Chloe's small hand clamp around my arm, not the playful squeeze of my cheerful granddaughter, but the desperate grip of someone clinging to safety. "Grandpa, we need to leave. Now." Her voice wasn't just urgent, it was shaking, like every word cost her to say. My stomach tightened. "Chloe, what's—" "Please," she cut in sharply, eyes flicking toward the staircase at the far end of the room. "Don't ask questions. Just go." I looked around, and for the first time I saw it, the Dalton house didn't look like the place I remembered. Everything had been scrubbed clean of warmth and replaced with showy, soulless grandeur. Gleaming catering trays sat under pendant lights I'd never seen before. The scent of slow-roasted beef mingled with the bite of citrus from cocktails poured into crystal glasses. This was supposed to be Ethan's birthday, a simple family dinner. But instead, it felt like I'd walked into someone else's performance. Across the living room, my son stood in a tailored suit, a polished grin plastered on his face. Vanessa clung to his arm like an accessory, her eyes sweeping the crowd with the precision of a hawk. Then her gaze landed on me, and Chloe and I saw it. Her smile didn't falter, but it hardened, just for a split second, into something cold. "Grandpa," Chloe whispered again, her grip biting into my skin. "Please trust me. You have to leave." 18 years I'd known this girl. I'd seen her cry over broken bones, heartbreak, and disappointments life had thrown her way. But I had never seen this look in her eyes. This wasn't fear of embarrassment or awkwardness. This was fear for our safety. Then Ethan spotted us. His smile faltered for the briefest flicker of a second before snapping back into place. But I saw it something calculated, something ugly, hiding just behind the charm. And then he started walking toward us, weaving through the crowd with that same predator's calm. My pulse pounded in my ears. I didn't know what was happening upstairs or what kind of game they were playing here in my own son's home. But I knew one thing for certain. My granddaughter wasn't imagining this. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. And in that moment, I had to decide, stand there like a fool and let whatever this was swallow us whole, or walk out into the freezing Colorado night, no questions asked. I chose to trust her. And God help me, I would soon learn just how right she was. If this story touched your heart, press 1 the comments. If you think it could have been handled differently, press 2. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? I've lived in Boulder for more than 40 years. Built my first house here with my own hands at 22, pouring concrete at dawn, framing walls until my shoulders screamed, and sleeping on a mattress in an unfinished living room while the wind whistled through gaps in the siding. Those early years carved something into me, an understanding that honest work and stubborn grit will outlast any silver tongue. The company that grew from that first house, Dalton Custom Homes, was never just a business. It was my proof that sweat and sacrifice mattered. We didn't just hammer boards together, we built homes where families began their lives. Even now, in retirement, I still wake up before sunrise and walk past my tools, picking them up sometimes just to remember what real work feels like. Ethan, my son, never wanted the blisters or the long days. He tried the business for a few months after college, but the first time he got sawdust in his hair, he acted like I'd sent him into a coal mine. What he did have was a gift for big talk, slick pitches, and shining promises that could charm a stranger in 5 minutes. And, God help me, sometimes even I fell for them. Over the years, I'd heard it all. The one was going to be a luxury condo project in Miami, dead before it broke ground. Then a cryptocurrency mining scheme, $50,000 gone like smoke. A food truck deal with a partner who, I later learned, had an embezzlement record. Every time Ethan ended up broke, I ended up covering part of the mess, and we swore we wouldn't do it again. Every time we lied to ourselves. Vanessa appeared after the food truck disaster. Immaculate, calculating, and always working the angles. Senior client relationship manager at some high-rise firm in Denver. I've never seen her spill a drink or a secret, but I've also never seen her look at anyone without silently weighing what they could offer her. To Vanessa, people aren't family. They're assets. And assets can be sold. Then there's Chloe, my granddaughter, my fishing buddy since she could hold a rod, my personal tech support since she was 12. College hasn't taken away her blunt honesty or her easy laugh. She spent her life sidestepping the tension between her parents and me, never picking a side, until tonight. Something had shoved her out of the shadows and straight into my corner, and I could see in her eyes it wasn't something small. And Maggie Collins, my neighbor, sharp-eyed as ever. Retired schoolteacher, lives in the house across from mine. Her porch overlooks my driveway, and nothing that happens there escapes her notice. Maggie doesn't gossip, but she also doesn't forget. She's been a witness to more than a few of Ethan's ill-timed visits. The truth is, Ethan and I have been dangling over the edge for years. We speak when we have to holidays, milestones, but most business talk turns into a fight. I've learned to keep my distance and my checkbook closed. Still, there's a stubborn streak in me that refuses to stop believing he might straighten out. That's why, earlier this week, when he showed up on my porch grinning like a man with the winning lottery ticket, talking about a real estate syndicate with guaranteed returns, I didn't slam the door. I listened. I listened right up until I dragged out the old manila folders, evidence of every failure he swore he'd never repeat. He didn't stay after that. Stormed out, slammed the door, and I told myself it was for the best. And now, 3 days later, here I was, standing in his new home surrounded by catered food, expensive wine, strangers trading investment tips like playing cards. My son, who couldn't pull together a down payment for a modest project earlier this week, now throwing what looked like a celebration for a Wall Street windfall. It didn't add up, none of it. And when I felt Chloe's hand clamp around my arm like she was holding me back from a cliff's edge, the truth hit me whatever this was. It wasn't just about money. Something was wrong. And if the look in my granddaughter's eyes was any measure, it was worse than I'd dared to imagine. 3 days before the party, Ethan barged in without so much as a knock. I was in my reading chair, the evening paper folded over my lap, when the front door swung wide and he strode in like a man late to close a deal. "Dad, this is it. The opportunity I've been waiting for," he fired off before the door even shut. I set my glasses on the coffee table and looked up at him. "Evening to you too, son. It's a real estate syndicate. Prime properties, guaranteed returns," he rattled on, pacing in front of my bookshelf like a caged salesman. 15% minimum, maybe 20. "Guaranteed, huh?" I rose slowly, letting my voice go flat, and crossed to the filing cabinet. He knew that sound, the metallic slide of a drawer, the heavy thunk of a manila folder on the desk. "Let's see." I flipped one open. "Miami condos guaranteed rental income, remember? $75,000 gone in 3 months. I laid the foreclosure notice in front of him. His jaw tightened. That was different. Oh? The crypto mining equipment that never arrived 50 grand sent to a stranger online. Was that different too? Bank statements joined the pile. His eyes narrowed, his voice spiking. "You never trust me. Every time I try to build something, you tear it down." "No, Ethan," I said, steel in my voice. "I remind you of what's real." The food truck file landed next 30 grand, burned, when his partner disappeared, along with the grill, the generator, and the cash box. Color flushed his cheeks. He yanked his jacket off the couch. "You're impossible." I didn't stop him when he stormed out. The door slam rattled the picture frames like a warning shot. The next morning I stepped outside and froze mid-walk. My Honda Civic sagged low, tires flattened to the rims. I crouched. 4 sidewalls, 4 precise punctures. Not vandalism, sabotage. Then I saw it. A roofing nail, small and sharp. My roofing nails. A cold knot twisted in my gut. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. I called Ethan. He picked up on the 3rd ring, voice groggy. "Dad, what's wrong? It's barely 9. My tires were all slashed last night." A pause. "That's terrible. Probably some neighborhood kids." "All 4. Same puncture, same spot. That's not kids, Ethan." Another pause. "Are you accusing me of something?" "I'm asking if you saw anything unusual when you left Tuesday night." I drove straight home. "Look, I know we had words, but I would never do that." "Oh." His tone was smooth, concerned even. But I'd heard that exact cadence when he was lying through his teeth to cover a debt. "I'll handle it through insurance," I said and hung up. The tow truck driver didn't mince words. 4 clean punctures. Somebody knew what they were doing. $800 to fix. By afternoon, I'd settled back into my routine coffee, turkey sandwich, sports section when my phone lit up with Ethan's name. "Dad, tomorrow's my birthday. Vanessa's planning a little dinner. Chloe will be there. It'd mean a lot if you came." The whiplash caught me off guard. After the blowout and the tire job, I'd expected silence, not an invitation. I don't know, Ethan. Come on, Dad. Chloe specifically asked for you. Her name softened me. What should I bring? Just yourself. Vanessa's handling everything. I said yes. Maybe it was a truce. Maybe Chloe really did want me there. And maybe, though I hated admitting it, I wanted to believe my son could pull off a simple family gathering without an ulterior motive. 2 nights later, I walked into his living room and felt my stomach tighten. The place looked like it had been staged for a magazine spread. New chandelier, leather armchairs, crystal glasses, a buffet that reeked of professional catering. Guests in tailored suits laughed over wine that cost more than my week's groceries. I caught Vanessa's eye as she glided through the room, topping off glasses. Her smile hit me like a blade polished for the crowd, but with a cold, assessing glint underneath. Ethan played host with a drink in hand, drifting from group to group, glancing at me every so often like he was measuring something. Each time I started to lower my glass, Vanessa materialized at my elbow, refilling before I could refuse. Then Chloe cut through the noise. Her hand gripped my arm. Urgent. Her voice was low, trembling. Grandpa, we need to leave. Now. One look in her eyes, and I knew this wasn't awkwardness. This was fear. Something was wrong. And whatever it wasn't going to happen out in the open. The taxi ride home was silent except for the low hum of the engine, a steady vibration under my feet. Streetlights flashed across my lap in short, cold bursts, like a slow strobe, each one pulsing in time with Chloe's warning hammering through my head. When I stepped inside my house, I locked the door hard bolt first, then chain and pulled out my phone. Chloe answered on the first ring. Grandpa, are you okay? Are you home? Yes, sweetheart, I'm fine. Now tell me what in God's name was going on back there. I heard her moving, then the muffled thud of a door shutting. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped to a whisper. I overheard Mom and Dad talking yesterday. They were planning to get you drunk tonight, and have you sign paperwork to transfer Dalton Custom Homes into Dad's name. My grip tightened until the phone creaked. Are you sure? Positive. They had lawyers waiting upstairs in the guest room. Mom kept checking the time and making sure you were drinking enough. Dad kept circling, looking for the perfect moment to pull you away from the crowd. That's why they wanted you to see the renovations upstairs. Hence to the sen. The pieces slammed together in my head like bricks falling into place. The over-the-top party. The constant refills I hadn't asked for. Ethan's restless pacing. Vanessa's polished, oversweet hospitality. They think if you've had enough to drink, you'll just sign without reading. Mom even said older people get confused when they drink. That last sentence hit like a fist. The cold, deliberate cruelty of it. Not just a con. A con built on the assumption that my age made me weak, stupid, disposable. You did the right thing, Chloe. Don't tell them we talked about this. If they press you, give them another reason you told me to leave. I already did, she said. Told Dad I was worried about you driving home late. He bought it. Good, keep it that way. We said our goodnights, but I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the heat rise under my skin, not from fear, but from a slow, searing anger. The next morning, just as I was pouring coffee, a voice called from across the yard. Evening. Rick, you were out late last night. Maggie Collins was in her wicker chair on her porch, cardigan pulled tight, watching me with that look she gets when she's already holding a piece of news. I walked over, coffee in hand. Yes, over at Ethan's. You heard about my tires? Her brow furrowed. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. I saw something Tuesday night, but I wasn't sure if I should say anything. What did you see, Maggie? She leaned forward, voice dropping. Around 9:30, I saw Ethan leave your house. Walked straight to your car with something in his hand, looked like a screwdriver or a punch tool. He went to each tire, knelt down, did something, then looked around like he was checking for witnesses. Didn't see me in the dark. That knot in my gut tightened into steel. Not suspicion this time, proof. You're certain it was him? I've known that boy since he was little. It was him. She told me she'd heard our raised voices earlier, our fight over his latest can't-miss deal, and then saw him head to my driveway minutes later. Now I had both the motive and the means laid out, clear as day. Ethan and Vanessa weren't just desperate, they were predators. Calculating, cold, and they'd decided I was their prey. I thanked Maggie and promised to keep her name out of it. Back in my study, I opened the filing cabinet. My hand hovered over the rows of manila folders, Miami condos, cryptocurrency mining, food truck fiasco. To most people, it was just a graveyard of bad deals. To me, it was a loaded weapon. By noon, the bones of my counterattack were in place. I wasn't going to confront them in a fit of rage. Rage fades. No, this would be deliberate, layered, unshakable, like pouring a foundation deep into the earth. And when I was finished, they wouldn't just fail to steal my company, they'd watch every rotten scheme they'd built collapse right on top of them. By 1 o'clock, my study didn't look like a retiree's office anymore. It looked like a war room. 3 precise stacks of manila folders covered my desk, the paper edges aligned like soldiers in formation. Each stack was a chronicle of failure, recklessness, and broken trust. Every misstep Ethan had ever taken, preserved with contracts, bank records, and emails he probably assumed I'd long since thrown away. I'd kept them partly out of stubborn habit, partly to remind myself of the cost of ignoring red flags. Today, they weren't just reminders. They were ammunition. Phase 1. Turn Ethan's past loose on the people he'd already burned. No rumors, no embellishments, just the unvarnished truth in black and white. Dan Harris. 25,000 gone in the Miami condo collapse. His packet got the original agreement, the bankruptcy court records, and an email where Ethan, already aware the project was dying, was still asking for more investment. Mike Lawson. 35,000 swallowed by the crypto mining scam. His folder contained payment receipts, ignored supplier warnings, and screenshots of the company website before it vanished. Becky Turner. 20 grand lost in the food truck disaster. Her packet included the partnership agreement with the embezzler and the background check Ethan never bothered to read. Each packet carried the same cover letter. Enclosed is documentation regarding past business dealings with Ethan Dalton. Please review and draw your own conclusions. No accusations. No threats. Just facts with sharp enough edges to cut on their own. I called an old courier service from my construction days, cash only, no paper trail. Drop-off scheduled for Friday afternoon. Perfect for a weekend of hushed phone calls and hard questions before Monday's work week began. Phase 2. Go after Vanessa where she lived her spotless professional image. At Pinnacle Financial Consulting, trust wasn't just a virtue, it was the product they sold. Being linked to a scheme to defraud an elderly family member? That wasn't a blemish, it was a career killer. I drafted a formal complaint, tight and surgical, detailing her role in a coordinated attempt to seize controlling interest in Dalton Custom Homes through deception and alcohol impairment. I noted the glaring mismatch between the Daltons' claimed financial strain and the extravagant party they'd just hosted. I suggested Pinnacle's HR review her client files for conflicts of interest and ethical violations. That packet went into its own courier envelope-typed label, no return address, no fingerprints in ink. Phase 3. Keep the trump cards in my pocket. Maggie's eyewitness account of the tire sabotage, Chloe's overheard conversation, and the physical evidence of Ethan's serial failures. Those would be for the final confrontation, when denial would be suicide. When I sealed the last envelope, I sat back and exhaled slowly. This wasn't about petty revenge. It was about drawing a line in bedrock and making it clear what it cost to cross it. Friday afternoon, 2:30 sharp, the courier van rolled away from my driveway carrying all 4 packages. By sundown, 3 well-connected business people and 1 HR department would have an entire weekend to chew on the truth. The ripple started fast. By Sunday night, calls buzzed in from old Chamber of Commerce, contacts' voices low, asking if I'd heard the same things about Ethan. I kept my tone measured. I'm sure you'll form your own opinion. By Monday morning, Phase 1 was already drawing blood. The network was alive and humming, and Ethan's name was no longer mine to shield, it was his to salvage, if he could. As for Vanessa, I didn't need inside intel to know her week had taken a turn. HR investigations in firms like Pinnacle start in whispers, closed-door meetings, quiet document pulls, careful questions posed to colleagues. But once that rock starts rolling downhill, it doesn't stop until it hits something hard. Now, all that was left was the waiting. And when they finally came knocking, it wouldn't be on their schedule. It would be on mine. It didn't take long. Tuesday afternoon, I heard car doors slam in my driveway hard enough that the sound echoed off the garage. A second later came the pounding on my front door, not a polite knock but a demand, each hit shaking the frame. When I opened it, Ethan stood there, face flushed, jaw locked tight, the cords in his neck straining. Vanessa hovered behind him, arms folded, eyes glittering with something between fury and desperation, like a gambler who just realized the table was turning against her. "We need to talk," Ethan barked, shoving past me without waiting for permission. Vanessa followed, her voice cooler but every bit as dangerous. "We know what you've been doing, Rick." I shut the door with deliberate slowness. "Then this should be an interesting conversation. Sit down." Neither of them moved. Ethan stood planted in the middle of my living room, pacing tight circles like a predator in too small a cage. "You destroyed my business relationships. Dan, Mike, and Becky all called me this weekend. They got these packets. Every deal, every loss, things you knew were private." "They weren't private," I said evenly, my voice like a nail driven straight. "They were documented transactions involving other investors. They have the right to see their own history and the man who cost them their money." Vanessa's tone sharpened. "And my employer received an ethics complaint yesterday. HR's already called me in. Do you have any idea what that does to my career?" I met her stare without blinking. "It means someone believes your role in a calculated attempt to defraud an elderly family member might be relevant to your client's trust." Her lips thinned. Ethan stopped pacing and turned on me, his glare edged with heat. "You're blowing up our lives over a family disagreement." "This wasn't a disagreement," I said, leaning forward, my voice cutting through the space between us. "It was a plan to take everything I've built. I know about the lawyers waiting upstairs at your party. I know about the drinks, the timing, the intent. Chloe told me everything." That flicker in their eyes, shock, then rapid calculation told me I'd just taken their last advantage. "And Maggie Collins," I went on, "watched you, Ethan, Tuesday night after our argument, walking to my car with a tool in your hand. She saw you kneel by each tire. She saw you work. She recognized you." His mouth opened, then snapped shut. His shoulders sagged for a heartbeat before he tried to pull himself upright again. "You can't prove—" "I don't need to prove it in court," I cut in, my voice sharp enough to stop him cold. "I have enough to prove it to the people who matter to you. And judging by the calls you've been getting, they already believe it." Vanessa stepped forward, her tone shifting from ice to a false softness. "Rick, we were desperate. The bills, the pressure, it's been—" "Number?" I stood, and both of them stiffened. "You decided stealing from me was easier than fixing your own mess. You crossed the line from family to adversary the moment you put that plan in motion." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Outside, a car rolled slowly past. In the kitchen, the refrigerator motor kicked on with a low hum, the only sound in the house. Finally, Ethan said, "So what now? You want us to beg? To admit we were wrong?" "What I want," I said, my voice low but hard as stone, "is for you to understand that actions have consequences. Dan, Mike, and Becky will never trust you again. Your network is gone. And Vanessa, your career will sit under a microscope until your firm decides you're too much of a liability to keep." Vanessa's eyes narrowed into slits. "You're enjoying this?" "No," I said quietly. "There's no joy in watching my own son and daughter-in-law burn their lives to the ground. But I will protect what's mine, and I will not hesitate to stop anyone, family or not, who tries to take it." For the first time since they'd arrived, neither of them spoke. They exchanged a glance, part stubborn defiance, part realization, and turned toward the door without another word. The click of it closing behind them was softer than their arrival, but it rang with something heavier. They knew now. I wouldn't be waiting for their next move. I'd already made mine. And they'd just walked out into the world with the match still burning in their hands. They didn't stay gone for long. The next morning, just after 8, my phone lit up with Ethan's name. Against my better judgment, I answered, "Dad, can we just talk one last time?" His voice was different, no bark, no swagger. Either the fight had drained out of him, or he was trying a new angle. I told him to come by at 9. They arrived together again. Vanessa wore a blazer and heels this time, polished like she was walking into a boardroom. Ethan's tie hung loose, his eyes rimmed with the sleepless red of someone who'd been stewing all night. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't even pretend at pleasantries. I just motioned to the couch. "All right," I said. "Say what you came to say." Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "We screwed up. I know we did. But you've made your point. Can't we just bury this? Start over?" I let the silence stretch until it felt heavy enough to snap. "You want to start over? Then we start with the truth. Why did you think you could get away with it? He hesitated, eyes darting to Vanessa. She was the one who broke first. Because you've always bailed him out, Rick. Every bad deal, every failure you wrote the check. We thought... Her voice trailed off, then hardened. We thought a few glasses of wine might make you easier to convince. Ethan flinched, but he didn't contradict her. I stood, walked to my desk, and came back with a stack of manila folders. I laid them down on the coffee table, one by one, like evidence in front of a jury. Miami condos, crypto mining, food truck. Each of these cost you and me tens of thousands. Each one dragged other people into the hole with you. These aren't just numbers, Ethan. They're broken reputations. Yours and mine, forever backing you. I turned to Vanessa. And you make your living on trust. You handle other people's wealth. And yet, you conspired to steal a company from an elderly client, me through impairment and misrepresentation. Do you have any idea what that looks like to your firm's HR or to your clients? Her jaw set, but she didn't deny it. I kept my voice low, deliberate, each word placed like a nail driven home. Here's what's going to happen. The business community already knows who you are, Ethan. You'll never get another investor in this town. And Vanessa, your career is going to live under a microscope until your firm decides you're not worth the risk. That's not me punishing you. That's the natural consequence of what you chose to do. Ethan's fists clenched on his knees. You're destroying your own family. No, I said, leaning forward. You destroyed this family the moment you decided money mattered more than trust. When you slashed my tires like some gutter thug. When you tried to trick me into signing away 40 years of my life's work. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. I've already spoken to Chloe, I said. She knows she's safe here. I spared her the ugliest details, but she knows enough to keep her distance from this mess. Whatever happens to you, it won't touch her future. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. So you'll turn her against us too? I don't need to, I said. She saw you for herself. Oh. The clock on the wall ticked, loud in the silence. You could have come to me, I said finally. You could have been honest about the pressure you were under. I wouldn't have written a blank check, but I might have helped you find a way forward. Instead, you treated me like a mark, and marks don't forget. Ethan sagged back against the couch, eyes on the floor. Vanessa smoothed her blazer, as if she could straighten what was already shattered. So what now? She asked. Now, I said. You go home. You rebuild if you can. Without my money, without my network, without my name to hide behind. And every time you're tempted to take a shortcut, you remember this morning. I opened the door. They didn't argue. They walked out side by side, but not in step Ethan, looking like a man who'd just had the last prop kicked out from under him, Vanessa already calculating her next play. I stood in the doorway, watching their taillights vanish down the street. The heaviness in my chest didn't lift, but it settled. The battle was over, and they knew beyond any doubt that if they came for me again, I'd be ready. That evening, the house was still in a way I hadn't felt in years. Not the brittle, airless quiet that lingers after an argument, but the deep, settled calm of a door closed, with no intention of ever opening again. I made myself a simple dinner, roast chicken, green beans, and a baked potato, and ate at the kitchen table while the Rockies outside my window caught the last fire of the sun. Halfway through the meal, my phone lit up. Chloe. Grandpa, are you okay? She asked the moment I picked up. I'm fine, sweetheart. Everything's been handled. She hesitated. I overheard Mom and Dad earlier. They were talking about people calling them, and Mom being called into HR. Did you? I protected what's mine, I said plainly. And I made sure they can't try it again. You don't need the details, Chloe. What matters is you did the right thing. There was a pause. I'm glad I warned you. I didn't want them to hurt you. You didn't just warn me, you stopped them cold, I told her. I'm proud of you. You showed more courage and integrity in one night than most people manage in a lifetime. I could hear her smile through the phone. Love you, Grandpa. Love you too. And remember, if you ever need anything, I'm one call away. After we hung up, I stayed there in the fading light, thinking about what 40 years of work had truly built. It wasn't just Dalton Custom Homes. It wasn't just a roof and 4 walls. It was a legacy earned brick by brick, deal by deal, and worth defending to the last nail. Ethan and Vanessa had looked at it and seen a prize to be stolen. Chloe had seen it for what it was, something built with pride, meant to last, and worth protecting even at personal risk. That night, I knew I'd sleep well not because I'd won some ugly family fight, but because I'd drawn a line and held it. I hadn't needed to scream, threaten, or lower myself to their level. I'd used the same tools that had built my life's work: truth, strategy, and patience. Some people think justice is about punishment. They're wrong. Justice is making sure those who try to take what's yours walk away with nothing and knowing you never compromised who you are to make it happen.